You know, when you're a kid, a sport bike is perhaps the ultimate expression of motorcycling. The lure of owning a full-fared motorcycle is unmatched, and that's why perhaps most of us end up buying these bikes. Take the Yamaha R15 for instance. It's now in its third generation and it's doing massive sales numbers. And that's because it's a full-fared sports bike. Now the latest model, the R15 version 3, is simply spectacular. The engine is phenomenal, the handling is next level, and it's a proper track-focused bike. However, having said that, you can't really ride it on a daily basis. You see, because it's simply too aggressive. The riding posture is very focused. So imagine if you take all the impractical bits out of the R15 without taking out any of the fun factor. Well, if you do that, this is what happens. The MT-15, a naked, more street-focused version of the Yamaha R15 version 3. And as you can see, we are at the Buddh International Circuit to test this bike. Of course, it's not meant for air, but it'll give us a fair idea of how it will behave on the road. Now the MT-15 is Yamaha's first mainstream MT series bike in India. And as you can see, it retains the signature design of its bigger siblings. I especially like the alienish face of this bike. You see those twin pods and a projector headlamp. It really looks very nice, and I think for this reason alone, it'll find a lot of takers. Now apart from this motorcycle shares all of its cycle parts with the Yamaha R15 version 3. The single-cylinder 155cc engine is the same as the R15's unit, and it springs to life with the same thrum. However, thanks to a retuned ECU and revised final drive ratio, the MT-15 pulls harder in lower gears. The motor is smooth and revs freely, and you may even find yourself hitting the rev limiter very easily. There are perceptible vibrations after you cross 7000 RPM as the handlebar gets quite buzzy. Overall though, the engine has a lot of character and its performance, as expected, is very strong. Due to its bigger rear sprocket and lack of any kind of wind cutting mechanism, the top speed of the MT-15 will also take a hit. However, you'll be able to see 125 to 130 kmph on the speedo without any real trouble. The gearbox is a 6-speeder and gets a slipper and assist clutch just like the R15. Shifts are precise and working the transmission is a delicately smooth affair. Now the MT-15 shares the same underpinnings as the R15 V3. Meaning it features a delta box frame and an identical suspension setup. This also means it gets a conventional front fork instead of an upside down fork which is offered on the international spec model. However, compared to the R15, its wheelbase is 10 mm longer. The trail, however, is identical at 88 mm. Also, it gets a box type steel swing arm and not a cast aluminum unit found in the R15. This is of course done to keep the costs in check. But despite all of this, the MT-15 is 4 kilos lighter than the R15, and at the racetrack it was quite evident that the MT-15 has a sharper and quicker steering courtesy of its light front end. However, in terms of feedback, it definitely isn't as communicative as the R15. But the inherent goodness of the R15 chassis is visible when you go hunting for corners. The MT-15 remains supremely stable around turns, while the MRF tires grip well too. But there are some flaws which are quite evident. For example, under hard braking and before corner entry, the rear does tend to get out of shape at times. And sudden direction changes can be unsettling because of the bike's super quick steering and restrictive saddle space. Now feature-wise, again, it's more or less the same as the R15. You get LED headlamps. Apart from that, there's a similar digital instrument cluster with all the telltale lights. As for its brakes, it gets disc brakes on both ends and their performance is satisfactory. However, the front does lack bite, and that's one area where it needs improvement. Also, surprisingly, the MT-15 gets single-channel ABS as opposed to R15's dual-channel system. So we are done riding the MT-15 and it's verdict time now. So what do I think about this motorcycle? Well, like I said in the beginning, it's truly an R15 without fairing. It's meant for road, it's more comfortable, it has the same sort of performance, and on the road I'm sure it'll be more fun because it's compact, it's agile, and I think Yamaha has got it spot on. Apart from perhaps one thing, that's the price. You know, this bike has a sticker price of 1,36,000 ex-showroom, and that's only 3,000 rupees less than the R15. Again, it's a great package, but it would have been a great value if it were priced around 1.2 to 1.25 lakh. Otherwise, I think it's a great bike.